Welcome to another episode of Retirement with Rick. I'm Rick Rodriguez, and today I have a very special guest joining us. I'm excited to introduce Joel Sutherland, a recent client of mine who used a reverse mortgage to buy his home through the HECM purchase, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later. Now, if you've ever wondered if a reverse mortgage could be a right fit for buying a home in retirement, this episode is for you. Joel's experience is a perfect example of how this powerful financial tool can help seniors make smart decisions when it comes to their housing and retirement needs. He'll share his personal journey, the insights he gained along the way, and his advice for others considering a similar path. So whether you're starting to explore reverse mortgages right now or you're deep in the process, grab a seat, get some valuable information, and let's dive in. Joel, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Rick. It's a pleasure to be here.
I appreciate it. I appreciate taking the time and joining us today and sharing some of your wisdom and experience and about the product and working with us. First thing, tell us, what did you do for a living before retirement, and what's keeping you active now in retirement?
Oh, that's a good question. So I was a professional in the area of supply chain management. So I worked for a number of companies, moved around the world, lived in 4 countries, 10 states, but all in my profession of supply chain management. So I did that for 30 years. And then I went into academia, which I'm still part-time professor at a university in San Diego.
Right.
So I've been doing that for about 18 years.
Right. Excellent. And that profession of yours in academia, I assume, helped you kind of navigate this reverse mortgage process. So had you heard, before we got together, heard before about reverse mortgages, and what was your initial impression before you and I even started working? I don't know how far back this goes, if you can let us know how far back, when that was, and what your initial impression was of the product.
Well, I think like a lot of people, you hear a reverse mortgage. If you've never done one, it's a little terrifying because even 15, 20 years ago, they would have horror stories because it wasn't as well managed as it is today, or it has been, let's say, for the last decade. So I think a lot of my feelings were based on things that I didn't know about reverse mortgages versus what I did know about it. So I was a little bit nervous about it. And then about 15 years ago, I moved to San Diego, and I met with my financial advisor, who has, fiduciary responsibility for watching after my money and guiding me in the right path. And he said, "Have you considered a reverse mortgage?" And I said, "No, I'm a little bit nervous about reverse mortgages from everything that I've heard." And he said, "It's all about cash flow. So what you want is to increase your cash flow in your retirement years, even though I'm not retired totally yet. I'm still working part-time." But he said it's all about cash flow, and reverse mortgage can help you in your cash flow if you manage it properly. So that was about 15 years ago was my first introduction to reverse mortgages.
And at that point, did you obtain a reverse mortgage? Were you looking into reverse mortgages at that time, or it was just, well, let me rephrase that, because you weren't looking for it. He advised it. Did you do something with that advice at that time?
Certainly, because I was in the process of buying a home.
Yep.
I had moved from the East Coast, from Pennsylvania to San Diego, and I wanted to buy a home. And I wanted to increase my cash flow because now my income was being reduced from kind of a high earner to a medium earner.
Sure.
And it was all about cash flow. So he stressed time after time, cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. And so I interviewed several people that had experience in reverse mortgages, and some of them were not very qualified, I would say. They said, "We can do a reverse mortgage for you." And I said, "Please explain it to me." And I said, I'm a little bit nervous about this. They didn't do a very good job, not like our experience later on. But then I found somebody that really was specialized in reverse mortgages in San Diego. And I engaged them, and it was smooth. A lot of paperwork, a lot of proving, income and capabilities and
Sure.
all of that. But I think going back to my profession, I've learned how to be organized and how to be analytical. And so that helped me pull all the paperwork together. And the reverse mortgage was a dream.
And so what year was that you first got your first reverse mortgage?
That would have been 2011.
2011.
So 13 years ago.
Okay. And now you obviously had some experience, 2011. That was when you put it in place. How long did you have the reverse mortgage in place, that particular one?
I had it until 2009 when I sold my home in San Diego.
Or
and
2019, you mean, or the timeline? You got it in 2011?
2011 through 2019.
19.
Sorry.
Okay, go
Sorry
ahead.
about that. So it was 8 years.
8 years. Okay.
And I sold my home there, and I made a nice profit.
Yeah.
It's just like selling any other home.
Yeah.
Except, it's a reverse mortgage, but it's just a mortgage. And so you could sell your home just like you could any other mortgage, and I made money.
You made money, because that's contrary to a lot of belief. I want to point that out. So you actually made money with a house that had a reverse mortgage.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of people out there that think that if you put a reverse mortgage in place, that kiss your equity goodbye. You're never going to see that again.
Not at all. My equity outgrew the debt that I had to service.
Yeah.
And so I don't remember the numbers, but I made a healthy profit on the home because of appreciation.
Yep.
And in the meantime, the money that I used to service that loan,
Yep.
I invested elsewhere.
You invested elsewhere. So all those payments that are potential payments that you would have made with a traditional mortgage, because of how the reverse mortgage works, and that's an optional payment mortgage, you're saying that you were able to take that or a large portion, whatever that amount was, and give that to your financial advisor, or put it into some investment products to further grow your wealth, so that when you sold that house, not only did you have the equity like you stated from when you sold it, but you also had this other a slush of money, if you will.
Correct.
That you had invested, that was made possible by the reverse mortgage, having the ability to do this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't give money to a financial advisor, but you get financial advice.
Yeah.
And what are your options in terms of investing?
Right.
And so he recommended a portfolio that would minimize my risk. And the reality is, because of how the market improved after about 2011, there were some good years in there, and then later on, and I still take a look at that portfolio, and it's over 100% improvement in my original investment. And so I think that's a lot of people don't realize that a reverse mortgage gives you that cash flow that you can do things with. And different people have different reasons for using that, but my advice to anybody is just don't use it for a around the world vacation.
Right, sure. And is this, I mean, in your opinion, is this, another stigma, is that, this is only for people who are in need? When you're down and out and you have no other options, then and only then use a reverse mortgage.
Absolutely not. I mean, I wasn't in need. It
Doesn't sound like it. Yeah.
It was all like I explained. It was all about cash flow. What do you do with this reverse mortgage if you don't have to invest in a monthly mortgage payment? What do you do with that extra cash that you have available? For me, I wasn't in need. I wasn't in dire need for anything.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of increasing my cash flow, and it more than offset I guess the right term is servicing that debt that would be that you would pay off in a reverse mortgage.
Right. So then going back to the timeline, you sold the San Diego house in 2019?
2019.
And then from there, did you buy a house right after that, or what did you do?
I did.
You did? Okay.
I did.
Did you pay cash? Did you use a reverse mortgage again, or what happened on that next one?
It was a condo.
Okay.
So it was a multi-level condo in a place called Lake Las Vegas here.
Yep.
And so you couldn't qualify for a reverse mortgage.
Oh, okay.
So it was a
Yeah.
lifestyle decision. And I can tell you the money that I got out of San Diego house selling that and then being able to buy in Las Vegas was a huge advantage in terms of the house you could get and the money you'd have to spend.
Sure.
So that was a decision at that time. And after about 4 years, decided that I wanted a different lifestyle change. So I wanted another home that would be a single residence that I could qualify for a reverse mortgage. And at that point, I looked at a reverse mortgage again.
Right. So now leading to the transaction we just did, I was going to ask you, what you were hoping to achieve this last go around when you purchased a home with the reverse mortgage. But it sounds like you already knew what you were going to achieve because you'd been down this road with the reverse mortgage. In fact, you wanted, like you said, you wanted
Correct.
to get a reverse mortgage on the condo in Lake Las Vegas, but because of restrictions, sometimes condos have restrictions whether reverse mortgage can be implemented into a development because of FHA requirements and such. So obviously that wasn't a possibility. Did you sell the condo, by the way? Or
I did.
You sold the condo and then you decided, like you said, to go into single family residence and you told yourself, okay, now I can revisit this product for my next property. And at that point, what did you already know that you were going to accomplish with this reverse mortgage when you bought your most recent property?
Well, first of all, I knew that I was disciplined enough to take this extra money that I would not have to pay into a mortgage payment, and I could use that for investment. But the most important thing for me was the availability of that cash.
Yeah.
All right. So as you get older, you don't know how you're going to need those funds.
Sure.
If you lock it into a mortgage, you're locked into a mortgage. If you have a reverse mortgage and you're smart about what you do with that available cash, it becomes available should you need emergencies. It could be for healthcare reasons. It could be for maybe you need to fix your home. Maybe there's a major expense and you don't have the available cash. So I've reinvested that money into investments that I could easily transfer into cash. Money market. It could be stocks or whatever, but easily an easy way for me to pull the cash out and use it if there's an emergency. But in the meantime, it's growing faster than the debt that I have to pay on the reverse mortgage.
Right. And what do you say to people who would have that same option as you and would have decided to pay cash for the home for reasons, I presume, primarily real estate, which has been a good investment, for all of us, for maybe the reason that they felt more comfortable, more confident that if they put all their eggs into the real estate basket, that in the end, their portfolio might look a little bit better than if they would have taken this other approach like you took, which is put a portion into real estate and put the other portion in, liquid accounts, other types of investments. What would you say to someone who would be in that same situation with those two choices to make?
That's a great question because I think we've all known people that were, let's say, older people like myself that grew up in a generation that says my goal is to own my house and not have any debt other than taxes and insurance, which you have to continue. Right. I want to pay off my house.
Right.
Well, that was probably good because of the debt depression era, and the after World War II, and people looked at homes as being that nest egg that they could keep and not have to pay anything. Right. But then it gets back to cash. It gets back to what my financial advisor said is, I think his term at the time was cash is king.
Yeah, I've heard that once or twice too. Cash is king.
Cash is king.
Sure is.
And so I would say that if you're paying off your home and you do have that need for cash, it's not as easy. Sure, there's lines of credit that you can go against a house, but then you've got prevailing credit rates that are fluctuating, and there's all kinds of risks that can be involved in that. And so, paying off the home sounds good, but the reality is that it takes away from your liquid assets.
Right. And going to the the only options that one has when you go to buy a house, we're covering two of them. When you're 62 and older, you have three, but for many people, it's either pay cash or you get a traditional mortgage. In your case, as well as the case for people who are of age, at least 62 and older for this product, you also have the ability of using a reverse mortgage for purchase, also known as a HECM for purchase. So you had these three options: cash, reverse mortgage for purchase, which you elected, obviously, and then a traditional mortgage where you could put same amount down, maybe as a reverse mortgage, 50% down thereabouts, and then you're going to have a mortgage payment. May not be a large one, but nonetheless a mortgage payment for the next, most likely maybe 30 years or so. Did you ever look at that option? Was that ever a possibility in your eyes for your situation?
Sure. I mean, I mentioned earlier in this discussion that I had lived in a lot of places. All of these homes I bought in the traditional way, with the 20% down, and you finance the rest.
Right.
And so that was always an option. It's just that as I get older, and I listen to the advice of a financial advisor, then it kind of opened my eyes, especially as you're 62 or years of age or older. It's an option that I didn't have when I was buying and selling homes throughout my career with all the moves. And so it took me a little time to really analyze it and to evaluate whether a reverse mortgage was the right thing for me. But once I understood it, then I never looked back. I never was concerned about it. A reverse mortgage was definitely a way to go, as long as I was able to manage that money and not just throw it away on things that I didn't need.
Right. So therefore, as we get older, as we age, I know there's a lot of different things in our lives that our perspective changes. We look at things differently. Mm-hmm. When it comes to real estate and mortgages, do you feel that as one gets older, that their perspective on how they manage their mortgage or how they look at buying real estate should be any different than it was when they were in their 20s or 30s or 40s?
Well, that's different for everyone, obviously. I think that because of the moves that I've had, I never stayed in a home for more than, I think the longest that I ever stayed in one home was 6 years because of corporate moves and that type of thing.
Sure.
But I think as you get older, then you look at where do you want to live, that you can live out your good years, let's say until your 70s or 80s, depending on how healthy you are, or before you have to move into assisted living or to a home. It could, but that's something that we face as we get older. And so I think that when I look at reverse mortgage, it was a place that I wanted to stay for a long time. Even the San Diego house, I didn't intend to do that until COVID hit.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, 2019, 2020 was a period of change. And so it changed the perspective. And I said, I want to move to someplace and live in someplace that I can live in a long term. So even moving to Las Vegas, yes, I was in a condo for 4 years, but then I thought about what to do, and I wanted that single family, one-story home that I could live in for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, sometimes people think that, wow, this is such a tough decision to try to determine whether I should put a reverse mortgage on this new property I'm purchasing, because I've been told, I've researched that this really only makes good financial sense if it's on a long-term property, as opposed to a property that I might only live in for a few years, or not for the rest of my life. So you obviously had a situation where you put the reverse mortgage going back to the San Diego property, and plans change. You maybe thought you were going to be there longer than you were. It was 5 years. Did that end up setting you back financially, having a reverse mortgage in place on that particular property for a shorter amount of time than you anticipated?
And no, I mean, I could show you my analysis. It wasn't a short time. So San Diego was 2011 through 2019.
Okay, that's right. 8 years.
I made a significant profit on my property even after the reverse mortgage the amount that I saved on the reverse mortgage.
Yeah.
Or the amount that you say I save paying that amount every month. But it goes against the kind of the equity in the home because you have to service that debt. You have to pay that back to the reverse mortgage institution. But because my equity grew so much faster than the amount that I paid on the reverse mortgage, I made a significant profit where I could buy pretty much for cash in Las Vegas.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because I come across that a lot where people are reluctant or hesitant because they feel like they've got to get this just perfect. They got to get this just right before they put a reverse mortgage in place, because there's this fear that it could turn out catastrophic. If it's not the right house, the right for the right number of years. So I'm glad you brought that up because I think that could give some comfort to people that none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know how long we're going to be in any particular home. So how could we forecast that? But it shouldn't maybe keep someone from looking into it, or maybe putting too much emphasis on, wow, I've got to, this better be my forever home, right?
Right.
Because I come across that a lot. I mean,
it's not true at all.
Not true at all from your experience.
I think that the one thing I think about is because you have, and you can help me from a real estate perspective, the $250,000 against your capital gains, but you have to live in a house more than 2 years.
Right.
That's the only thing I'm concerned about when I even think about reverse mortgage.
Right.
Is that $250,000 allowance against capital gains.
Yep.
And so the reverse mortgage isn't an onerous amount that you pay in addition to a traditional mortgage. It's maybe a few thousand more. I don't remember what the numbers are.
Yep.
But my concern is only that 2-year period, and after that, I can make a profit on the house and not have to worry about capital gains.
Right.
So I don't think about that I have to live there for 5 or 10 or 20 years, but I think that for a lot of people that go into a reverse mortgage, that is in the back of their minds. It's something that allows me to stay in this house for a long time and not have to worry about paying a mortgage.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we've talked about this. I've put both of my sisters into reverse mortgages.
Right. Yeah.
And
tell us a little
one
about
reason
that.
is my twin sister needed dental care, and it was a significant amount. And I got her into a reverse mortgage, and she was able to take care of some very expensive healthcare costs, not just her dental cost. And my other sister, her husband had died, and she had this house that she wanted to update, to remodel. And she was going to stay there for forever. She doesn't have any plans to move. And she was able to use that for capital improvements in her home, what she's going to get back in terms of home improvement when she does have to sell the home or give it to her heirs.
You've obviously been a proponent, with your own family. You obviously feel confident enough what you've seen it do for you to have your two sisters go down this road as well and kind of guide them into a reverse mortgage. So,
but one point I just want to make: my one sister lived in a manufactured home.
Okay.
And she said, I cannot get a reverse mortgage because they don't do it for remanufactured homes. Uh-huh. And I said, I don't think that's true. And so we researched it, and she owns the property that her manufactured home is on.
Right.
As long as you own that property, then you can get a reverse mortgage.
Right. Yep. And I'm glad you brought that up because, there has been some doubts that people have on different property types, manufactured home being one of them, and whether reverse mortgage is allowed. And it is, so that everyone out there is listening. You can get a reverse mortgage on a manufactured home. There's a couple criteria as long as you meet them, but it's certainly possible. So you've obviously have had some experience with the product before you and I met, which we just met earlier this year. How did you find out about me and what? I know you could have had some other options. What made you choose me for this particular reverse mortgage that you did?
Yeah, and that's a great question because you have to put confidence and have a belief in somebody is going to be after your best interest. It's like I talked about my financial advisor, and I talked how important that was to have confidence in your financial advisor. Well, you're a financial advisor to me when it comes to reverse mortgages. And the one thing that I wanted to do is make sure that I vetted several people before making that decision, because I wanted to understand their capabilities. I wanted to understand their experience. I wanted to understand their ethics before I move forward. And I talked to several people that were real estate agents, and they said, "No, we know about reverse mortgages." Well, that doesn't work for me. Knowing a little bit about it is a lot different than being an expert in that area with tons of experience and years of experience.
Because you were looking to buy a house with a reverse mortgage. So you're saying, hey, not only should I work with a mortgage banker who knows about or specializes in reverse mortgage, on the flip side, a real estate agent that also has familiarity with the product as well, and the little nuances that come with it when you make an offer with a reverse mortgage on it, right?
Well, true, except it's more than nuances. It's more than being familiar, because there's a lot of real estate agents out there, I can tell you, that don't know anything. Okay. They don't know anything about
We're not going to name names here today. No.
And they're terrified. I've talked to some real estate agents, and they say, "Oh, no, those are scary. Stay away from those." Yeah. It's because they don't know anything about it. Yeah. And so it was vetting them. And so I went and asked for recommendations. Your name came up as somebody that had a ton of expertise and experience in this area. And so you became one of 2 or 3 that I made on my short list. And it was your analytics that you provided to me that were personalized for my specific needs and the amount that I wanted to pay for a house. And you said, here are all of the things that you need to consider. And maybe it was a short video, maybe it was 5 or 10 minutes, but you had all of my numbers, you had all of the cost, you had all of the kind of the graphics that showed how much I could increase over time. You talked about the options of reinvesting that money. You talked about the options of using that money for important things that I might want to pay attention to as I get older. So because of that, you became the one person on my list that I wanted to work with. Well, so you went from the short list down to the one list.
I'm very grateful to have been on that short list and then the one list. So thank you for giving me that opportunity. Then you decided to work with me. How was the experience working with me and my team?
Seamless. It was like, it's, as I said earlier in this podcast, the one thing that people have to realize is having your paperwork together, because there is a lot of paperwork. There could be, I want to say, a little bit more paperwork, because with a reverse mortgage, you have to satisfy certain requirements in terms of, you have to take an exam or whatever it's called. Counseling. Yep. You have to take counseling. You have to answer questions. You have to make sure that you know what you're getting into. Right. Because a reverse mortgage requires that you keep your house up to date. You maintain it. You're required to live in it. I think it's at least 6 months out of the year as your permanent residence, and you have to sign every year on that. You have to make sure that you pay your taxes and you pay your insurance, and you document that and provide that if needed. So it becomes a little bit of a, I think some people think, oh, that's a lot of paperwork. That's a lot of, no, it's not anything. It's not anything more than you would do for a regular mortgage or conventional mortgage. It's just that you have to document it and be prepared to show it in the case that you're asked.
Right. And speaking about those requirements, because another thing that I hear a lot when I read different articles and comments out there, people say that the reverse mortgage is going to impose on you, not just what we're talking about here, which is more documentation maybe than you would sign with other products, which there's a little bit more documents, I will say, because it's an FHA product, number one, so it's government insured. There's a few more requirements that the lender has to adhere to, perhaps in other types of products. Plus, because it's a mortgage for people who are 62 and older. There is some redundancy in a lot of the disclosures. They want to make sure that people thoroughly understand how it works. But aside from that, what I hear a lot too is that once you have the reverse mortgage, that the product imposes all these additional requirements or restrictions on a homeowner than otherwise one would have with other types of mortgage products. From your experience, have you felt that? Have you felt that you're being restricted in any way because of putting this reverse mortgage in place, or are you feeling any kind of burden by having the product?
No, I can tell you, I haven't felt any burden. There is a responsibility to pay your taxes, to pay your insurance, and to keep your house up to date.
Right.
Those are the only things. Who doesn't want to keep their house up to date if you're going to live there?
Right.
But nobody comes and inspects it. You just sign, you sign the annual form that says, yes, I've lived in my house for more than 6 months a year.
Yep.
It's very easy to find out if you've paid your taxes and paid your insurance. But there's nothing that's onerous about this. Nothing that I felt was different from a traditional mortgage.
Okay, good. This time around, were there any surprises or anything new that you learned in this last transaction that I was a part of that you didn't know or weren't aware of from the previous?
No, because I learned a lot. I was sold on reverse mortgages, because of my 10, 12, 13 years of experience with a reverse mortgage in the past. And I know that even my twin sister, she doesn't have a computer. She doesn't have she doesn't know what a Wi-Fi is. And so what I would say is even for older adults that are not tech savvy, you can get somebody to help you. I just helped her pull her paperwork together.
Yep.
It was more of a manual process, and being able to provide that in order for her to qualify for the loan, because I couldn't qualify for her. She had to qualify on her own. She had to take the counseling process, and she was intimidated by that. And then all of a sudden it was like, wow, that was a lot easier than I expected.
Yeah.
And so she was like amazed and very happy and being able to live in her home. So it was the best thing that ever happened for her. But just that bottom line is, people that get older, I know, are not as tech savvy as some of us are, because I'm still in the academic world. I'm familiar with technology and being able to pull the paperwork together. But it's not that difficult. It's not that challenging once you have the help of somebody like a Rick Rodriguez to help you pull that paperwork together. It makes it much easier than people might otherwise imagine.
Do you think it's important to work with a company, and more so someone who's been doing this for a while? Do you think, in your experience, that is valuable for people to look for? Because there's a lot of companies good mortgage companies out there that do great, that will dabble in reverse mortgages, and many times, like in different professions, if you have an opportunity that lands in your lap, you will try to find a way to make that deal happen or put that deal together. From your experience, is there value in working with someone who specializes in reverse mortgages?
Yeah, you use the word dabble. And even though I liked the realtor that I was using for my first reverse mortgage, I felt that I had to teach that realtor about reverse mortgages because of the questions. Well, how does this work and how does that work? I'm not sure. Let me find out. Well, I don't want to work with somebody that says, I'm not sure, let me find out.
Yep.
I want to work with somebody that has an immediate answer, and they speak from knowledge and experience and make me feel comfortable in being able to do that.
Yeah, understood. So you touched on a little bit earlier, how would you say that the reverse mortgage has impacted your own retirement and your lifestyle?
Like you said, I touched on it earlier, because I'm very disciplined.
Yep.
I've reinvested this money. So every month I've made the personal decision that the money that I use to service the the mortgage, the monthly mortgage rate. Let's say it's just rounded off and say it's $2,000 a month. I invest at least $1,500 to more than $2,000 a month in order to more than compensate for that. And that keeps me at least level financially, but that money is put into liquid assets that I can draw out. So, for example, I put it into a money market. Well, money markets are paying 4.5%, 4 to 4.5%. My interest on the reverse mortgage is variable, but I think it's around 6.5%.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm a little bit south of that 6.5%, but I'm almost even when you think about the kind of the portfolio of investments that I have, because some of those are growing at 8%, some are growing at only 4.5% in the money market. So I'm more than covering my costs for the reverse mortgage, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And so right now it sounds like you have the ability to contribute, as you said, anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 a month towards your investments by way of having the reverse mortgage in place that doesn't require you to make any mortgage payments, allowed you to have more cash flow to be able to direct this money, $1,500, $2,000 a month towards these investments. What is the objective, out of curiosity? What is your objective, and how, in other words, how long do you foresee yourself making these $1,500, $2,000 a month payments? Because I know you're still working, right? Is it a plan where, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but just as an example of how some people have utilized this, is similar to what you're doing right now, with the objective that once that I get to a point where perhaps my income isn't coming in as much, or I stop working altogether, now I can start turning to those investments that I had been funding all those years by way of having extra cash flow. And now, I'll have that much more money to last me that much longer when income starts to decrease. Is that a kind of a similar objective or plan for you?
You asked me the question, but you gave the answer. That's exactly
exactly
what I'm doing it for. I'm not doing it because I don't think that I'm going to need the money in the future. It's because I'm doing it because I think I will need the money in the future. And
you're doing it for your own retirement, where some might have beneficiaries that maybe they would be doing the same thing. They would be putting this money into these investments so that they've got more control of it. It's more liquid, et cetera. And then one day that's what, they're going to transfer to their beneficiary. Some will do that just for the benefit of the beneficiary. In your case, first and foremost, and I don't want to, again, put too many, I don't want to answer for you, but first and foremost, it's for your own retirement, as you said, and maybe for a legacy as well?
Yeah, it is for my own retirement, but I also have peace of mind because if I do want to take a vacation, I've got the extra money.
Right.
But that extra money would come from someplace anyway.
Yeah.
It's not money that is I'm recklessly spending. It's money that I have put away into liquid assets, investments. And so if I want to take that vacation, if I want to do something with my home, if I want to loan my children money or do something, that money is there for me to use.
Right.
Rather than, as I said earlier, spending it on a around the world vacation.
Right.
Some people, I know they do that. Oh, if I do that, I'm going to have extra money of, let's say I've $2,000 a month more. I'm going to spend that on vacations for the rest of my life. Well, that's their decision. They can do that. That's, if that's their passion, they can do that. For me, I have more of a discipline in how I want to use that available money.
Right. And speaking of vacations, you just came back from a nice vacation. It sounded like, and this is something that, as you said, you've been doing for years. But I presume, like you mentioned a minute ago, peace of mind. Perhaps the reverse mortgage has provided you with greater peace of mind, so that when you do decide that you want to take these vacations, that you can do so with more confidence, financially speaking.
Yeah. I know that money is there. I'm not spending it. I think any of us that have reasonably good health and we're in our let's say 62 to I'm almost 80,
Yeah.
is they want to have that peace of mind. They want to be able to travel. They want to have that nest egg. That nest egg is a safety net.
Yep.
So that you have that money when you need it for something, whether it's a vacation, whether you have to fix a plumbing issue in your home, whether your kids need money and you want to be able to help them. It's that nest egg.
Okay. And now you're in this home. You've got the nest egg. You've got the peace of mind. It's hard to put a price tag on that, right? I mean, is it hard to put a price tag when one puts their head down at night on that pillow, right? And you can feel good about, I've got this nest egg. I've just bought, this wonderful home. I have this better control over my mortgage, my money. I'm able to look forward to a trip, in the next couple months. Like, I've always been interested in that aspect of life and how you can't put necessarily a price tag on what that peace of mind is. But if you could articulate as best as you can in your experience, like what is that feeling when you put your head down on the pillow with, what you currently have in place today?
Well, I'm not like everybody. I got to.
You don't put your head on the pillow?
I do have the pillow, and I go to bed every night feeling very comfortable in my financial situation.
Yeah.
But I'm crazy about Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah. Okay.
So I know where all my money is. I know everything about my cash flow and how to manage that. And whether you use a financial advisor for that or you have that ability to put it into an Excel spreadsheet and know where your money is, I can tell you that I feel absolutely very comfortable, very safe in having reverse mortgage and the benefits that it gives me long term.
Yeah. What would you say to someone who right now is worried about running out of money or not being able to afford a home in retirement? And perhaps maybe they haven't heard about this option, or maybe they're considering about this option. What would you say to someone who's in those shoes right now trying to make that decision? Or maybe they're just in an existing home and they're putting their head down at night on that pillow and it's not as peaceful and as restful as perhaps it is for you.
So this isn't a scripted podcast that we're doing.
No.
But what I have told them, I've talked to several people that were in the situation that you've mentioned. Yep. And I have one close friend that she says, I'm $35,000 away from paying off my house. Getting back to that earlier question.
Sure.
And I said, talk to Rick. I know the person that you can talk to, because she's worried about, I don't have money for a vacation. I don't have money. I've got to fix my home. I've got, as we said, medical expenses. And I said, why don't you consider a reverse mortgage? She says, oh, I'm terrified of those. And I said, let me put you at ease. Talk to Rick Rodriguez. And I know that this isn't a commercial. You didn't pay me for this. You didn't ask me to say that. But through my experience working with you, I'd say talk to Rick Rodriguez. He won't put any pressure on you. He will give you the advice. He'd say, when you're ready to work with me. But in the meantime, I can show you how those numbers will work for you to achieve the kind of goals that you want to achieve.
Well, I appreciate that.
I meant it from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah. And there was no exchange of money under the table if people were looking for that. But I appreciate that. So looking back, anything that you would have done differently during this process of buying a home, or going back to San Diego when you bought your home with a reverse mortgage, is anything that you've learned in these 13 years or so, it sounds like, or longer, of having a reverse mortgage in your retirement plan? Anything that you would have done differently that comes to mind?
No, there is nothing. I am just so grateful that I discovered reverse mortgages and the benefits that it could provide to me. I would have done it earlier, maybe.
Okay.
Because as I said, I'm almost 80, and so I've had the years to do that, and I didn't do it before. And so I would have certainly considered it, but I was, like a lot of people out there, I was nervous about it. There's a lot of realtors that I said don't know about it, and they'll steer people away from a reverse mortgage. It's not because they know about reverse mortgages. It's because they don't know about reverse mortgages. So the only advice that I would give is, before you make a decision for a reverse mortgage or not, talk to somebody that knows a lot about reverse mortgages.
Well said. Would you mind sharing? You just went on a very, what sounded like just a fabulous vacation. Would you mind sharing real quick where you went and just a few highlights of where that part of the world looks like? I mean, it's a place that's on my personal bucket list. So I wouldn't mind hearing it again from you and maybe sharing with others what you just were able to do. Well, and I know you travel. Traveling is part of your retirement plans before we even met. But I was very intrigued with this latest place that you visited.
Well, you can almost you could say on my bucket list was places that are new and unusual. And so I've been to over 80 countries. My goal at one time was to reach 100. Now it's not so much traveling to new countries as much as it may be going back and revisiting some countries that I've been to. But the one that I want to that was very intriguing was Morocco. And people said, why do you want to go to Morocco? And I said, well, I mean, first of all, I've never been there.
Yeah.
So I want to experience that. And so I did my research, and here's this, you would think of it as it's a small country. It's not. It's a 40 million people population, and it has everything you can imagine from the oceans to the mountains to the desert, just like living here in Nevada and California. You have all these options. But more importantly, I wanted to meet the people because they talked about how gracious they were and how nice they were. And the population there is over 99% Muslim.
Okay.
And so you have, let's say, some very interesting habits in terms of how they wear their clothes and how they eat. And I wanted to experience that. So we went through those various areas, the Sahara Desert, riding on camels, and we hiked in the Atlas Mountains up to areas where they actually have ski resorts in Morocco.
Ski resorts
in
Morocco.
Ski resorts,
we never thought that. Yeah, I'm just thinking Sahara Desert, but ski.
Well, we think of that. Yeah. And so, but it was the people. They were so gracious, felt so safe, never felt in danger. The children were marvelous. They just have a beautiful life. And the good thing is I lost about 8 pounds on that because you're eating, it's all farm to market. It's basically what they grow in that region is what you eat. And so there's always some protein, but it's always vegetables. And you don't have ice cream or cakes for dessert. You have fruit. Yeah. And so I felt very healthy, and I've extended that kind of health regime after I have returned home. But it was a marvelous vacation for 3.5 weeks.
Wow. Fantastic. Sounds lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely letter. Well, thanks for sharing for that. Anything we didn't cover? Anything that you want to leave us with? Any last thoughts?
I don't think so.
That was a great last thought. I mean, I don't know how we could top Morocco and what you just depicted, but anything else that comes to mind that we should?
Just the one thing that I said as we were wrapping up, and that is if you're looking at buying a home, or if you're looking at staying in your home and you don't have the money, don't be afraid of looking at a reverse mortgage. I think there's a lot of people out there that are in their home and they don't even think about it anymore. Yeah. But you can refinance and get into a reverse mortgage. That's the one thing that I didn't mention is that when I was in San Diego and the interest rates went from, I think it was 6.5 or whatever in the 2011, 2012 period when I first bought, and then they went down to like 5%, 4.5%.
Right.
I refinanced.
Yep.
So just because you have a reverse mortgage doesn't mean you can't refinance that
Great point.
reverse mortgage.
Great
and
point.
so I did that, and I still made a boatload of money on my home in San Diego.
Yeah, great point, because that goes back to what we were talking a little bit ago. People are trying to time this thing perfectly or get it perfect, and sometimes it might take more than one transaction to get the most out of it, like hence a refinance of existing reverse mortgage, where at that point, then you can not only do people do that to lower the interest rate, but then at that point, because the rates are lower, you qualify for a greater percentage of your home's value. So therefore, you can access another chunk of home equity and place that in your existing line of credit if you have one, or even take the cash to do other things with, invest, what have you. So I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people don't know that, and that can help make it a little bit easier to digest that, okay, I can amend this if necessary.
Correct.
Down the road if conditions get more favorable for whatever reason. I can amend this to get more value out of the product, right?
Well, and there's one thing you would have to answer this question, but I know that let's say that you put more into your down payment for the reverse mortgage than is required.
Yes.
Don't you have like a line of credit to that money that continues to grow at the interest rate of your reverse mortgage?
Yeah, that you're right, and that's a whole other topic of conversation. But you absolutely, if you buy a house, you've got your minimum amount that you're required to put down, which is based on your age and the current interest rate. So everyone's percentage might be a little different because everyone's age could be a little different. But if you go above and beyond and put more money down than the minimum required, that additional amount of funds goes into your reverse mortgage line of credit. So what you're doing is you're overfunding your reverse mortgage. So not only are you going to have a lower balance to start with, because again, you're overfunding, you're putting more down payment than was required at your age, but it's also creating this line of credit from the onset. And those funds that are in the line of credit, and that's whether you buy a home or you refinance, when you have a line of credit, it's a growing line of credit, as you alluded to. And it's growing by the exact same interest rate as the debt side, the loan balance. So this could be an absolute great tool for people who, when they go to buy a house, they're thinking, well, I'm going to have this extra money. Where should I put it? And maybe for right now, I'll just put it in my reverse mortgage in this growing line of credit, because interest rates right now are 6.5% or thereabouts. And that might make sense for me personally to put it there. So absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, because you can absolutely do that.
Yeah. I know for my twin sister, I kept looking at her statement and it was growing.
Yeah.
In terms of her line of credit, I was surprised, and I said, Judy, you're making money on your reverse mortgage.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah. I mean, that to me is the single most important aspect of the reverse mortgage. And we didn't talk about that here today. You used the reverse mortgage to buy a house, and we were talking about other obviously important aspects here of your journey. But that line of credit, to me, that's like the most important thing of the whole reverse mortgage, and the most unknown aspect of the reverse mortgage. Like, people may know, like, okay, I've got options I can take. If I do a refinance on my existing home with a reverse mortgage, I can take a lump sum cash like I could with other products. I also know that I can set up a monthly payment. That was very popular when reverse mortgages were first created, and in the early 2000s when I started, was to take whatever you're qualified for as a monthly payment, whether for life or for a certain number of years. Or I also know that I can take a line of credit. But what I don't know, unless I really dig in and speak to someone who specializes, I don't know the power of this line of credit and how it's growing at compound interest.
Correct.
And how that's what got financial advisors interested in this product. Back in like the mid 2000s or so, there was a lot of research that's been done on this from the financial planning community and some very prominent tax attorneys who looked at the code, looked at this product and said, wow, this could be a great vehicle to put in retirement planning to help grow cash flow and overall assets and help strategize to decrease income taxes. I mean, that's a whole other podcast segment for you and me another time. But I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what I call the secret weapon of the reverse mortgage?
Even though we covered it, even though we talked about it, even though you talk about it, it's another thing when you see your statement and see, there's this extra cash and it's growing at 6 or 7%. That's pretty cool. That's beating my money market at 4.5%.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, unless you had anything else, I think we've covered it from top to bottom. I want to thank you very much once again for coming in and spending the time with us to share your experience, your knowledge, what you've learned thus far about the reverse mortgage, hopefully helping others to better understand, maybe feel a little bit more comfortable, more confident about just looking into it. I mean, that's what I always say. At the very least, if you're of age, just look into it for yourself. It may not work well for you, but at the very least, if it's an option, maybe it's something that you should consider. Look at it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Consider it.
Consider it. Right. Yeah. Okay. Joel,
Talk to Rick.
Talk to Rick. Great last word, Joel. Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
If anyone has any questions, thoughts about today's episode, fantastic episode today with Joel, please reach out to me. And as always, if you have any questions at all about retirement mortgages, AKA reverse mortgages, please reach out to me at any time. Thanks for tuning in, and keep an eye out for the next episodes of Retirement with Rick.